After the car crash, I woke up to find I had a handsome, aloof beta husband. My heart started pounding, and I had to fight to keep the smile from splitting my face. I kept asking him about our relationship history, but when I asked if we were compatible, in that way, he suddenly froze. After a long pause, he finally answered, "Not very compatible." He thought for a moment, then added 4 more words. Honestly, it was just average. My world shattered. The sharp smell of antiseptic filled the air. The constant beeping by my ear made it impossible to sleep. I opened my eyes, the first things I saw being a white ceiling and the 4 bag hanging above me. My head throbbed, my mind a total blank. I turned my head, dazedly taking in my surroundings. A hospital bed, medical equipment, and a man. He hadn't noticed I was awake. He was completely focused on peeling an apple. His soft, short hair fell forward as he looked down, exposing the smooth, pale nape of his neck. Just looking at his back, I felt a strange sense of familiarity. The man finally noticed me. He turned around, and a handsome, coolly detached face appeared before me. Instantly, my heart hammered against my ribs, and even the beeping of the monitor beside the bed seemed to speed up. There was no scent of pheromones. He was a beta. For a prime alpha, a beta isn't the ideal partner. Most alphas choose omegas, who can also sense and react to their pheromones. But there are always exceptions. Like me, for example, I think I fell for this stranger, this beta, at first sight, because he was just so damn beautiful. Just looking at him made my heart soften and sent a tingly, pins and needles feeling through me. In that moment, only one thought filled my head. If only he could be my husband. Our eyes met. I straightened my hospital gown, ruffled my bedhead, and put on what I hoped was a charming smile. "Hi, what's your name?" Sean looked up, his voice cool as he bit out 2 words. "San." My heart gave another violent thump. I asked tentatively, "And what are we to each other?" Sean paused. He stared at me for a long time before answering, "We're husbands." I was stunned. "I have a husband this handsome?" I swallowed hard and asked again just to be sure. "For real?" Sean nodded. "Yeah." I couldn't hold back my grin. The corners of my mouth were practically reaching for the sky. How could something this good happen? I wake up and suddenly have the beta husband of my dreams? Sean looked away, picked up a book from the nightstand, and started reading. I was giddy, but I kept trying to talk to him. "Honey, Sean, you're a beta, right?" Sean nodded. "So how did we meet?" He hesitated. "An arranged date. Married first, love later? How exciting." I felt a surge of energy returning to my body. Then a crucial question occurred to me. I stammered, "So, for us, an alpha and a beta, are we compatible?" In that department, Sean's expression shifted slightly. I rushed to explain, "Oh no, it's just, betas are different from omegas, so I was worried, and, alphas are pretty big." Sean looked at me, his silence stretching on for an especially long time. Finally, he narrowed his eyes and spoke. "Not very compatible." He thought for a moment, then added 4 more words. "Honestly, it was just average." While I was still frozen, Sean called for a doctor. After a routine checkup, a couple claiming to be my parents rushed in, hugging me and sobbing uncontrollably. "Oh, my sweet boy, you had your mother worried sick, you know that? Sobi. Sean's been here day and night taking care of you. You'd better thank him properly. And don't you do anything else to make him angry. We can talk about everything else once you've recovered." Overwhelmed, I instinctively searched for Sean. He was standing at a distance, his gaze detached. It wasn't until evening that the room finally quieted down. I quickly pieced together the information I'd gathered. "My name is Leo, and I'm 29. I was in a car accident 2 days ago. It wasn't serious, but the impact gave me amnesia." As I was thinking, the man who had been pushed into the corner all day sat back down beside me. My mind went blank, all my thoughts scattering. Those 4 words, "honestly, it was just average," once again filled my brain. I was so upset I couldn't sleep all night. That night, huddled under the covers, I checked myself over and over, but I couldn't figure out what the problem was. It's not short and it's not thin, so how could it be just average? Could it be a stamina issue? The more I thought about it, the more miserable I got. I decided to head to the bathroom to test things out. But the moment I stood up, I woke Sean, who was sleeping on the cot next to my bed. He was still half asleep, his voice lazy and hoarse. As he propped himself up, the loose collar of his shirt slipped down. In the moonlight, I saw something that sent a jolt through my entire body. In that instant, it was like a switch flipped inside me. A rush of heat went straight to my groin. Sean rubbed his eyes. "What are you doing up?" His soft whisper curled into my ear, raising a fine, tingling sensation across my skin. I obediently lay back down. Seeing me settled, Sean lay back down too, curling up to sleep. As for me, I spent the rest of the night wide awake, fighting my body's reaction. I finally figured it out. Average probably wasn't about size or stamina, it was about my technique. Betas aren't like omegas, and if my skills were lacking, of course Sean wouldn't enjoy it. I breathed a sigh of relief. Technique could be practiced. If it were a physical problem, that would be much harder to fix. I spent a few more days in the hospital, and Sean stayed with me the whole time. Probably because of our incompatibility, Sean was reluctant to get close to me. He was cold and avoided physical contact at all costs. Since Sean was ignoring me, I had to resort to pretending to be weak and having trouble moving. Only then would Sean's heart soften. He'd not only ask me in a gentle voice what was wrong, but also support me as I walked. Sean's faint scent was intoxicating, making me want to bury my face in his neck and just breathe him in. Looking at the smooth skin of his neck, I licked my canine teeth and suddenly felt a pang of indignation. There wasn't a single mark from me on Sean's body, not even a trace of my pheromones. A beta can't be permanently marked by an alpha, but for a married couple, his scent shouldn't be this faint. If Sean went out alone like this, besides the ring on his finger, who would even know he was married? I pouted and secretly released my pheromones, wrapping Sean in a tight cocoon. Sean didn't notice a thing and just kept asking me what was wrong. After nearly half a month, I was finally discharged. Sean finished the paperwork and came back to the room to pack. I rushed over and snatched the bag from his hands. "I'll get it. You go rest." As an outstanding and responsible alpha, how could I let my husband do all the work while I just stood there watching? I started packing, huffing and puffing. Sean's brow furrowed. "This morning you said you were so weak you needed help just to go to the bathroom." I froze, then went back to acting shaky and frail. "I just wanted you to get some rest." "It's fine, I'll just take it slow." Sean came over and started packing with me. Just as I was enjoying his closeness, a sickly sweet pheromone scent wafted in from the door. A second later, a petite omega, tears streaming down his face, burst into the room. "Oh, darling, are you okay?" The omega had a clear target. He opened his arms and rushed straight for me. I panicked and instinctively backed away, hiding behind Sean. Who is this?" Sean's expression was calm, as if this were a common occurrence. "Your side piece." Then Sean added, "Because of him, we're about to get a divorce." A cold sweat broke out across my body, and the hair on my arms stood on end. No way. I am absolutely not the kind of scumbag who would cheat on his gorgeous husband. The little omega, ignored by both of us, stood at a distance, his eyes darting between me and Sean. He looked at us with a hint of confusion, as if trying to confirm something. He took 2 steps forward, moving toward me. I was still trying to clear my name. "That's impossible. He's not even as good-looking as you." My hand was gripping Sean's arm. He glanced down at it but didn't pull away. "You said you were disgusted that I'm a beta. What's wrong with being a beta?" I was so flustered my tongue felt tied. "Betas are great. I love betas. I only like betas." The familiar words sent a sharp pain through my head, and my thoughts became jumbled. Seeing the omega getting closer, I panicked and gave him a shove. The next second, the omega went spinning across the room like a top. Sean was startled. I was startled by my own reflexive action. The room fell into a dead silence. Sean was the first to recover. He took a couple of steps forward, intending to help the omega up. Are you okay?" Should I take you to get an X-ray? The little Omega refused his help. He struggled to his feet, holding his back as he shuffled out. I'm fine, really. You two talk. I'll just go make an appointment. Cough, cough. On the way home, Sean was very quiet. I sat in the passenger seat, not daring to let out even a wisp of my pheromones. The new phone Sean had bought me buzzed with a few notifications. I didn't read them closely. It was something about a workplace injury claim, probably a scam. I immediately blocked the number. The car stopped at a red light. I mustered up my courage and spoke. This has to be a misunderstanding. Sean's tone was cold. You don't remember anything. How can you be so sure? Of course, I said firmly. I'd bet my life on it. There's no way I would ever cheat on you. I'll find proof. Proof? Sean laughed. Where are you going to find that? I pulled out the old phone, which was smashed beyond recognition. I'll send it for data recovery. And what if it recovers proof that you did cheat? I didn't hesitate. It won't. Sean was speechless. He opened his mouth, then closed it, finally just saying, let's go home first. The first thing I did when we got home was find a reliable data recovery specialist and mail my phone out. When it came time to pay, I was stuck. I couldn't remember my payment password. Sean paid for me. At the dinner table, I tried my phone several more times. I tried every number saved in my notes, but nothing worked. Suddenly, I had a flash of inspiration. Sean, when's your birthday? I entered Sean's birthday. The next second, Sean received a transfer notification. I held up my phone and grinned at him. Found the password. He looked at me, his eyes dark. You don't remember anything, yet you're not scared at all? Scared of what? My brain was scrambled, I couldn't think straight. With you here, what's there to be afraid of? I don't know if it was because of my promise, but Sean's attitude toward me softened. As night fell, I started to get nervous. If we're husbands, does that mean we sleep in the same bed? My heart started beating faster, and the tips of my ears turned red. Even though it wasn't a good idea to have sex before we'd resolved that one thing, if Sean insisted, I wouldn't say no. This time, I'd give it 120% and give Sean an unforgettable night. With that in mind, I pulled out my phone and started studying up on various techniques. Things didn't go as planned. I waited in my room until midnight, having memorized every technique in the book, but Sean never showed up. The huge duplex apartment was pitch black. Other than me, there was no one else in sight. Following the faint trace of my pheromones on him, I found that Sean had already gone to bed in another room. Sean stopped me at the door. He blocked the entrance, showing no sign of budging. You said you didn't want to sleep in the same bed as me. I felt like I'd been struck by lightning. That's impossible. Sean didn't seem to want to argue with me and raised his hand to close the door. I quickly stuck my foot in the gap, fighting for one last chance. What if we have separate beds in the same room? I'm still very weak. I have no strength in my whole body. If I get up in the middle of the night, I could get dizzy and die in the bathroom. Silence. Sean looked at my hand, then back up at my face. You didn't look so weak when you pushed that Omega this afternoon. After a lot of pleading, Sean finally agreed to let me sleep on the floor in his room. I dragged my bed into Sean's room. Because of the limited space, we had to push the two beds together. Sean slept with his back to me, as far away as possible. I felt that strange feeling again. I'm not the type who has to be with an Omega, so how could I have said something so disgusting about him being a beta? Besides, compared to Sean, that Omega was a complete stranger to me. It didn't feel like we had any connection at all. The more I thought about it, the more my head hurt, as if it were being smashed by something heavy. I instinctively scooted closer to Sean, wanting to smell that comforting scent of his. I quietly rolled over to Sean's side. The moment I slipped under his covers, his scent enveloped me. My tense mind instantly relaxed. I buried my face in the sheets, savoring his smell. At the same time, I released my pheromones, saturating Sean's territory with my own scent. Before long, I was tense and throbbing again. Only this time, it wasn't my head. What are you doing? Sean's voice cut through the darkness. I flinched, and the pheromones I just wrapped around him snapped back. I answered honestly, I wanted to be closer to you. He didn't reply. In the pitch-black room, there was only the sound of our breathing. Seeing that Sean wasn't trying to kick me out, I boldly inched closer. My head hurts a little. I want to smell your scent. Sean finally answered, I'm not an omega. I don't have pheromones. I just want to smell your scent. Sean went quiet. Sensing his mood was off, I repeated the promise I'd made during the day. I will definitely clear up this misunderstanding between me and that omega. Sean turned over. With his movement, the distance between us shrank again. He said, what if you regret it after you find out the truth? For some reason, I was certain. I absolutely won't. Sean took me to work. My mind was a complete blank. The whole way there, I worried whether I could handle my job in my current state. But I soon discovered I had worried for nothing. Because after we entered the company building, I found out I was the boss. Sean spread the files out in front of me. Your daily work is just handling documents, listening to your subordinates' reports, and occasionally holding a meeting. Soon, the first employee came in to give a report. I put on a serious face, my gaze sharp, nodding as I listened. When the employee finished, I picked up the document to review it again. Under the employee's anxious and expectant gaze, I turned and showed the document to Sean. Is this okay to sign? Sean took it and scanned it quickly. Only after he nodded did I sign my name. With Sean around, everything went smoothly. But there were times when Sean wasn't there. He settled me in my office and then went downstairs. The office was empty, just me. Before long, I started to feel anxious and followed the direction Sean had gone. Sean was in the main office area. A few omegas and alphas, holding coffee and hoping to curry favor with him, had smelled the lingering pheromones on him and were standing at a distance, not daring to approach. I swaggered over triumphantly to declare my ownership. For the next few days, I followed Sean around like a puppy. He raised his hand. I handed him water. He shifted in his seat. I pushed his chair in. He had to pee. I stood guard. Sean, with his belt half undone, looked at me with a completely exasperated expression. Do you really have to follow me in here? Covered my eyes with my hand. I won't look. Sean just shook his head, helpless. After the sound of his belt unbuckling, other noises followed. I couldn't help it. I peeked through my fingers. Just one glance was enough to make my heart pound. So hot. I want to taste. The scene from the day replayed in my mind over and over. I was hot all over, my thoughts a jumbled mess. Just then, Sean walked past me. He was wearing pajamas and the fabric was thin. As he moved, the soft material clung to his skin, and the faint outline of his curves floated past my eyes. I practically started drooling, and my pheromones surged out of control. Soon, the whole house was filled with my scent. Even Sean was wrapped in it. Sean acted as usual, not disturbed in the slightest. Only I was like some pervert lurking in the corner, my mind running wild as I watched him. Before bed, I gave myself an inhibitor shot. As the needle pierced my skin, the restless pheromones in my glands gradually settled down. Only after I was sure I was completely calm did I enter the room. Sean was already in bed, propped up against the headboard with a book in his hand. The moment I lay down, Sean's scent filled my nostrils, and the urges I had just managed to suppress sprouted up again like bamboo shoots after a spring rain. In the middle of the night, I was so pent up I couldn't sleep. I snuck one of Sean's undershirts and hid in the bathroom. The small piece of fabric was saturated with Sean's scent. I buried my face in it and took a long, deep inhale. The smell made me even more excited, and I immediately began my nightly activities. Because Sean was a beta, I shamelessly released my mating pheromones, my hand moving faster and faster. Just as I was reaching the climax, the bathroom doorknob suddenly turned. Sean appeared in the doorway without any warning. I was so scared I went completely limp. Sean looked at me, his eyes slowly traveling down my body. My shirt was on properly, but my pajama pants were pooled around my ankles. The piece of cloth I had stolen from Sean's closet was still in my hand, its dampness leaving little to the imagination. Most obvious of all was the mess I'd made on the floor when Sean startled me. I tried to explain. It's not what you think. I was just practicing. This is a special tool I use for practice. It was a long moment before he spoke. So, are you done? I need to use the bathroom. My face flushed red, and I quickly moved out of the way. I'm done. Sean's scent mingled with the thick alpha pheromones in the air. He walked straight to the toilet. His fingers rested on the waistband of his pants, but he didn't move. He turned his head to look at me. Aren't you leaving? I glanced down and answered honestly. Looks like I might have some business to take care of again. For the next few days, my dreams were filled with Sean. Sean smiling at me. Sean being cute with me. Sean with clothes on. Sean without. During the day, if Sean got even a little too close, I'd have an immediate reaction. Like right now. Sean handed me a contract he'd reviewed, his finger tapping lightly on the paper. Sign here. We were so close our shoulders were touching, and my elbow on the armrest brushed against Sean's waist. I had no time to recover. I instantly got hard. I lifted my leg to hide the evidence and briskly signed the contract. Sean didn't notice my predicament. After checking the signature, he moved on to another document. I rested my forehead in one hand, peeking at Sean through my fingers. Betas weren't fragile and thin like most omegas. On the contrary, Sean's body was firm and well-proportioned. Lean where he should be lean, with muscle where there should be muscle. The other night, I'd been half asleep and had accidentally ended up sleeping next to him. My arm accidentally draped over his body. It was only for a moment, but I couldn't get the feeling of his firm waist out of my head. Even now, it made my heart itch. I swallowed and checked on the progress of my old phone's repair. The reply came quickly. Boss, this one's gonna take a while. It's a real mess. I felt a pang of frustration. I should have just confronted that Omega in front of Sean when he showed up last time. Now I didn't even have his contact info. I couldn't ask any questions, which was seriously slowing down our relationship progress. My phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. I frowned, immediately hung up, and blocked it. Phone scams were rampant lately. They always started with a demand for a money transfer. I was getting harassed several times a day. So annoying. As we were getting ready to leave work, we ran into a few alphas. They lit up when they saw me. Alpha 1, Leo, you're looking great. Alpha 2, long time no see, man. The guys were so worried when we heard you were in an accident. We would have visited, but by the time we found out, you were already out of the hospital. Alpha 3, it must have been tough on Sean, taking care of you. A few of the alphas came in for a group hug, slinging their arms over my shoulders. Trapped in their embrace, I could only shoot Sean a desperate look for help. They're your good friends, Sean explained. The alphas nodded like bobbleheads. Alpha 1, Leo, we're your ride or dies. Alpha 2, don't worry, we'll help you get your memory back. One of the alphas rubbed his nose, his gaze sliding suggestively between me and Sean. Alpha 1, damn, Sean is covered in your pheromones. Leo, you lose your memory and you're still this lovey-dovey? I'm jealous. Alpha 2, come on, let's go. Long time no see, let's grab some dinner. Alpha 3, Sean, you coming with? Sean shook his head. You guys go ahead. I have something to do. Don't stay out too late. The alphas nodded eagerly. You got it. We'll make sure to get Leo back in one piece. I was about to refuse, but seeing how they interacted with Sean, I quickly changed my mind. On the way, I tried to subtly probe for information. Before I lost my memory, was my relationship with Sean good? Alpha 1 scratched his head. Feels like it's better now than before. Alpha 2. Before, whenever we went out, you'd always brag about how amazing and beautiful your partner was, but you never brought him out with us. Alpha 3. Sean really is amazing. I frowned and then asked about the Omega. The alphas were horrified. Alpha 1. What? Leo, we're brothers, but I will absolutely not support you doing something like that. That's a matter of principle. Alpha 2. Sean's such a good person, you can't do him dirty like that. Alpha 3. So, does this mean I can pursue Sean now? Me? After that, I got information from a lot of people. Friends, employees, Besides my family and Sean, no one knew about the Omega. In their minds, Sean and I had always been a model couple. Everything about that Omega seemed like a performance put on specifically for Sean and our parents. Just as I thought. Something was fishy. The bathroom door opened, and steam wafted out as Sean emerged. Sean went into the study, rummaged around for a moment, and came out holding a thick album. These are your childhood photos. Maybe they'll help you remember something. He opened the album in front of me. The edges of the photos were yellowed, the colors slightly faded. They were clearly old. I looked at the kid with a runny nose and grimaced. Is that really me? Sean nodded. That's you at 3. He flipped the page, pointing them out to me. 5 years old, 7. When he got to a photo from when I was 10, he paused, his finger resting on another person. In the picture, I had my arm around a boy, and we were both making peace signs. The boy looked uncomfortable but was still forcing a goofy smile for the camera. Sean's expression softened. That's me. Hearing that, the goofy smile suddenly became adorable in my eyes. I reached out and gently stroked the photo. So cute. We've known each other since we were kids? Sean hesitated for a second, then nodded. You could say that. He didn't linger on that photo and continued flipping through the album. But my attention had already shifted from the album to Sean. The ends of his hair were still damp, smelling pleasantly of shampoo. I couldn't help but lean closer, enveloping him in my pheromones. Sean turned his head. What's wrong? We were already close, and when he turned, we were even closer. I quickly looked away, forcefully suppressing the urge to kiss him. After a long moment, I turned back. Sean. Sean tilted his head. What is it? Please believe me. There has to be some misunderstanding with that Omega. I swear on my life. Just give me a little more time. I'll prove it to you soon. And then, can we start over? I'll practice my technique. I won't let you think it's just average ever again. Sean didn't answer. The room was quiet, leaving only the sound of my own heart pounding in my chest. The longer Sean stayed silent, the more anxious I became. When I looked up again, I saw that Sean's face and neck were flushed bright red. According to Sean, once I got the hang of my work, he wouldn't be by my side every day. Of course, I wouldn't allow that to happen. Even after I learned everything, I'd still pretend not to understand and ask Sean for help. To keep him from getting annoyed, every time I asked, I would follow up with a torrent of mindless praise and a relaxing massage. Things between Sean and me were progressing smoothly until that Omega appeared before us again. That day, Sean and I were walking home after a stroll. At the entrance to our apartment complex, we ran into the Omega, who had clearly been waiting for us. He looked furious and rushed forward, trying to grab my collar. Luckily, the building's security guard saw him and intercepted him before he could get too close. The Omega was shouting nonstop. Leo, how could you be this kind of person? Are you even human? Huh? Have you forgotten everything you promised me? The color drained from Sean's face. He quickened his pace and walked ahead without looking back. The moment we got home, I immediately started waiting on Sean hand and foot, bringing him snacks, pouring him water, helping him change. One look from him and I'd come running no matter where I was. Sean was still angry. He hadn't said a single word to me since we saw the Omega. But for some reason, I felt a little happy. After all, when I first woke up, Sean had almost no reaction when he saw the Omega. The fact that he was angry now, did that mean he cared about me more than he did back then? Sean suddenly spoke. You're going to the office by yourself tomorrow. I'm going to the stables. Can't I go with you? I immediately turned on the charm. I haven't had a day off in so long. Sean's refusal was swift. No, I begged him for a long time, but he wouldn't budge. I got desperate. As Sean stood up, I scooped him up and hoisted him onto my shoulders. No, you're not allowed to go alone. If you want to ride something, ride me. I'm definitely better than any horse. With that, I started moving, carrying Sean in circles around the living room. Maybe it was the sudden change in altitude, but Sean was tense at first, his hands gripping my hair tightly. After a few laps, he gradually relaxed. His curled toes straightened out, and his legs swung freely in front of me. I let out a few hoarse-like whinnies. Sean finally broke, bursting into laughter. He cupped my chin, lifting my face to his, and leaned down to look me in the eye. His beautiful face was brimming with a smile, and his voice was filled with delight. "What are you doing?" Sean murmured, ruffling my hair. "You were never like this before." My breath hitched. What was I like before? Sean started to imitate me. He put on a stern face, affecting a cold, cruel demeanor. "This marriage was just our parents' idea. We don't have to fulfill any spousal duties. I've seen plenty of people like you. I'd advise you not to get any funny ideas. It's disgusting. I already have an omega I love. You should go find your own true love. You may be a beta, but you're not less than anyone else. Are you really going to let yourself be trapped in this loveless marriage? Don't worry, I won't interfere with your life. In fact, I can't wait to divorce you." My lips pressed into a thin line. Did I really say all that? Sean nodded. "Yeah. And more. I can't remember all of it." He seemed unaffected, as if those words hadn't hurt him at all. But my heart ached, twisted with guilt. "I'm sorry. I said so many hurtful things to you. You must have." My voice grew strained. "Hated me, didn't want to." A hand covered my lips, pushing the rest of my words back down my throat. He looked at me, his expression more serious than I had ever seen it. "I never thought of you that way." The phone repair was finally done. The tracking showed it was out for delivery. I paced around my office, restless with anticipation. The moment I got the text notification, I bolted out the door. At the exit, I ran into Sean. He was standing in the stairwell on the phone. I didn't want to disturb him, so I took the elevator down. The phone was perfectly restored. It looked brand new. As the startup screen loaded, my heart pounded. I couldn't wait to tell Sean the news. I practically ran back to the office. But when I opened the door, I saw that Omega leaning on Sean's shoulder, sobbing pitifully. "Sniff, you have to help me. My relationship with Mr. Leo was purely professional. I was injured because of him that day. According to the contract, that's a workplace injury. Mr. Leo needs to cover my medical bills and compensation for emotional distress. But not only did he not pay, he blocked my number." The Omega grew more and more aggrieved, even hugging Sean's arm as he cried. "You be the judge. Who does something like that? I'm just a helpless Omega. Why are you doing this to me?" Sean saw me standing frozen in the doorway. He looked away from me and put a comforting arm around the Omega's shoulder. "You're right. I'll get justice for you. Don't cry. You'll ruin your pretty face." The Omega's face turned red. "Thank you. You're so kind." He looked up, gazing at Sean with tear-filled eyes. "If you get a divorce, could you give me a chance? I'm not the type to sleep around. I'm a professional actor. I graduated from..." The truth was out, but I was too furious to process it. I grabbed the Omega, who was still listing his credentials, and threw him and his checkbook out the door. Trying to steal my man right in front of me? I was so angry my head started to spin, the world tilting around me. I struggled to stay upright, trying to use my pheromones to drive out the lingering scent of the Omega. Sean sat where he was, a strange expression on his face. He said that Omega was kind of cute. My heart seized. I crumpled to the floor and lost consciousness. The rage shocked my memories back into place. I had met Sean once a long time ago. In a patch of woods that was still wild, Sean was sitting under a tree, tears streaming down his face. I walked over and asked him, "What's wrong?" Sean's voice was hoarse from crying. "I'm lost. Are you lost too?" "No." I shook my head. "This is my family's land. How could I get lost?" Sean wiped his tears. "Do your parents not like you either, so they made you come out here alone?" His question confused me. We had guests over and they'd brought several kids. They were so loud that I'd snuck out the back door to get away. Seeing Sean's state, I didn't explain. I just plopped down beside him. "Your parents don't like you?" At that, the tears Sean had just managed to stop started flowing again. From his broken explanation, I pieced together what had happened. Sean had a lot of siblings, and he was the only beta. Because of that, he had been overlooked his whole life. Being forgotten and left behind was a common occurrence. At first, Sean could tell himself they were just too busy to notice him. But as time went on, he couldn't lie to himself anymore. Sean was sobbing, babbling incoherently. Sob, I don't want to go back. Why am I a useless beta? I don't want to be a beta. Sob, I wish I were an alpha or even an omega. I yanked him up from the ground. Don't you dare say that. What's wrong with being a beta? Betas are great. I love betas. Betas aren't less than anyone else. Sean blinked, his eyes shining. Really? I nodded emphatically. Of course. You're going to be the most amazing beta ever. And later, Sean did become the most successful child in his family. The first thing I did when I woke up was search the entire apartment for Sean. The moment I saw him, I basically slid on my knees and threw myself at him. I thought your parents were forcing you, so you hired an omega to put on a show for them. I swear, there's nothing between me and that omega. Actually, I fell for you the moment we met on that arranged date. You have no idea how much I wanted to hug you, to kiss you, but I was too scared. Sean was silent for a long moment. So, are we still getting a divorce? I blurted out, no divorce. Never. I see. Now get out. No. I shook my head violently. I'm not leaving. Sean covered his face and let out a deep sigh. I don't think now is the time for this. It was only then that I noticed the strange texture under my hands. I looked up. Sean was naked, still covered in soap suds. And the spot my face was pressed against was strategically located. I sniffled and shamelessly pressed closer. Honey, I've been meaning to say this since I spied on you last time. How are you so damn beautiful? I nuzzled against him. Can I have a kiss? Just a lick is fine, too. Epilogue. Sean told me I was his first love. He'd fallen for me that day in the woods when I encouraged him. Hearing that made me so excited my pheromones went wild. I went into a rut that very night, and Sean and I finally made up for our lost wedding night. We holed up at home for 3 whole days. To make sure Sean felt good, I was incredibly attentive every single time, giving it my all. By the end, Sean was like melted pudding, sprawled on the bed and covered in dark red marks. I leaned over him, seeking praise. So, was that just average? He looked at me, tears clinging to his lashes, and took a long moment to come back to himself. It was okay, I guess. I pressed down on top of him again. Let's go one more time. Sean burst out laughing. I was kidding.